Hi guys, welcome to Geeks. As you can see, we're already laughing because we're going to be talking about the Joker. On my right here, I've got Jedd. Chances are you know Jedd from one of the very many reviews that you've probably read. If the review made sense, it's probably written by either him or me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wait, you're also taking that opportunity to praise yourself.
Yes. So today we're going to be talking about Joker, right? The Joker that just came out, and I don't think the Joker himself needs any introduction. He's probably one of the most iconic comic book as well as on-screen villains.
Yeah, just in pop culture in general, even if you've never read a Batman comic, you know what the Joker looks like.
Yeah. In fact, while the version of the Joker that we're talking about is not in this lineup, this gives a very quick breakdown as to how many times we've actually seen the Joker in how many different forms.
Yeah.
The main bit of our concern or our discussion here today is how the movie impacts the audience, and also whether this is the kind of future we want to see for superhero movies.
Yeah, we're gonna be talking about the movie, but we're not gonna exactly be reviewing the movie. Like, we're not giving a review with a score. But what we thought about the movie will factor into the discussion surrounding the movie.
And if you're worried about spoilers, well, the Waynes die.
What? No, Ryan, you can't do that.
Right? I mean, I know this is a big spoiler from a comic book that came out in 1939, but...
Yeah, and that's actually something we will talk about, like how closely does this connect to the mainline Batman canon? Is it supposed to replace anything? Is it supposed to be definitive in any way?
Joker is actually pretty unique, right? It's the first time we're actually getting a movie that's dedicated to a superhero villain that's not Magneto stealing the show from everybody else.
We have never had Joker in a movie without Batman.
Yeah, pretty much, right? And it's quite interesting how they ended up doing this movie, because the Joker was actually supposed to have been either a prequel or a sequel to Suicide Squad, focusing on Jared Leto's Joker. But, response to his take on the character was so negative that they decided to basically abolish the whole DC Cinematic Universe, or DC Expanded Universe, as they're calling it, and just kind of make this a standalone. So it evolved into a character study about what is probably one of the most, well-known comic book villains of all time. We're going to see movies about the villains, and this is a very different take, because even within comics, you don't really see the villains being given this kind of attention.
Yeah.
Right? Every now and then you might have an event like Forever Evil, Faces of Evil, which looks at the role a villain plays.
Yeah.
But this is essentially turning the bad guy into the protagonist.
Exactly. If you have a Joker movie with no Batman, then even if Joker isn't the hero with an uppercase H, with capital H, he's still the protagonist. He's still someone whom you're supposed to empathize with. And I think the other thing about the intention behind this movie is that it's very much supposed to be an homage to a certain style, in the vein of 70s, early 80s psychological and crime thrillers. The template is Scorsese, and they wanted Scorsese on as an executive producer. He was going to be, but he was busy with The Irishman.
Yeah.
So to the point of actually casting Robert De Niro in this movie and filming it, and the credits are done in a way that makes it look like it was a movie that was done in the 70s.
Right, yeah. The inappropriately cursive.
Oh yeah, that's right. And also, I think adding on top of the intention to make this an awards contender, to make this like a serious prestige movie,
it's definitely Oscar bait.
Yeah,
right?
It's the star, is Joaquin Phoenix. And Joaquin Phoenix is someone that Marvel has been after for a while. They were looking at him for Hulk, and they were looking at him for Doctor Strange. And the big reason he said no to that was he didn't want to be in multiple movies.
He's just not a guy who really likes the whole franchise pursuing. And
yeah, he was going to be more Edward Norton than Edward Norton, basically. So, like the Joker movie gives him an opportunity to have something that is a star vehicle.
I think Joaquin Phoenix was easily the best thing about Joker, and I guess to the fanboys, there's something satisfying to see a person very close to Heath Ledger taking over the role.
I mean, it's not exactly the same, but those takes and like the arrangement and the way they play him as clearly someone who, this is not someone who fell into a vat of acid, which was the same thing with Heath Ledger. He didn't fall into a vat of acid.
It's kind of like when Jim Belushi took over John Belushi's role in Blues Brothers 2000.
Oh, that was a thing that happened. Yeah.
Yes. Nobody wants to remember Blues Brothers 2000.
Oh,
but then
yeah.
This Joker, however, there's also this. He's still the protagonist of the movie. So we are following his journey. It kind of cornered the writers into having to present him in a very sympathetic, in a manner that the audience can empathize with him.
For sure, yeah. The movie is all about getting into his head and understanding why he does what he does. So I did have someone ask me, like, at the end of the movie, does the movie with certainty condemn Joker's actions? And I can't really say yes or no, because the movie does show that his actions have consequences, but at the same time, he gets the glorification that he wants. He gets the exaltation, and he gets to be a symbol.
And that's kind of my issue with the movie.
Yeah.
I'm going to just say that I love the movie. I think it's a great movie. In a technical aspect, it was shot well, it was edited fantastically.
Yeah.
The soundtrack was perfect throughout, and Joaquin Phoenix as Joker is, I think it's incomparable. So my issue with it is this really a character you should be empathizing? Moments in the movie where you're rooting for him.
For sure.
Right? Because the situation that they painted, Gotham, is very much what is happening around the world. It's actually realistic. And you can't help but relate to the character if you're not one of the 1%.
Yeah, that's the other thing, right? Thomas Wayne, Bruce Wayne's father, is in this movie, and he's in this movie as an antagonist. Kind of the symbol of all the things that Joker's fighting against.
This is the first time we see a dickish Thomas Wayne.
Yeah, like a very callous, condescending Thomas Wayne who is crushing the everyday man under his heel. And so Joker, the clown mask, ends up being a symbol of revolution.
Yeah.
I think a complaint that I've heard is that the movie is the origin and then nothing else. So it doesn't show you Joker. It shows you the journey of Arthur Fleck to become the Joker. And he's only Joker at the very, very end of the movie.
I was actually a fan of the idea that he's just the first Joker.
Yeah.
Right? I would like to think that whoever it is that killed the Waynes will be the next Joker.
Oh,
and
okay.
if they ever wanted to tie it to the DCEU, that guy could have killed Jason Todd, who then becomes this moron right here. And
oh yeah, I don't like that fan theory, but
for me it was more of if they didn't want a Red Hood, making him the Joker.
Exactly, yeah. Right. Stay away from Best Joker.
Yeah.
Gonna be taken out of context.
But that being said, I'm not sure if a villain should be given this legacy treatment that has been reserved for heroes.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
It would be interesting if they did a Joker trilogy and they showed how, with every passing generation, the idea of being a freedom fighter gets bastardized into just becoming a terrorist.
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so that would be interesting, but I don't think that was the intention. I think the intention here was just that they wanted to make a Joker movie and they decided to use mental illness as the scapegoat for sympathy.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think that is something which is endemic to the Batman stories, is that basically every villain has a mental illness, and mental illness has become shorthand for this is scary. So there are some stories that explore that and that go into more detail and that have more nuance than others. But generally you see like people have made charts where this villain has this mental illness, has this diagnosis.
Literally, Batman doesn't throw them into prison, he throws them into an asylum.
He does, yeah.
Right? So there is an identification within the universe that most of his criminals, most of his enemies require therapy. They don't require incarceration. That's the other problem here, right? I wasn't very hot about the fact that he becomes murderous with intent, and his explanation was, I'm off my man.
Oh yeah, that is the thing that happened.
Yes, I was not happy with that. Because by doing that, you're essentially saying the nature of my insanity is what allows me to become a murderer.
Yeah, that is inherent within him.
Yes, so that was his natural thing. Look, him killing his mom and stuff I could handle because there was very personal problems and he did go through substantial amount of abuse as a child.
In a sense, the mom kept his identity from him, didn't tell him that he was being adopted because it was to empower her delusion that Joker, that Arthur Fleck was the love child of her and Thomas Wayne.
Right.
And that's actually one of the interesting things that I thought the movie added to the mythos for a while, was the possibility of Joker being half brother to Batman.
Right.
It's been done to death like a long lost brother. That's literally a cliche, but it was
Sabertooth and Wolverine.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. The whole the circumstances under which Arthur Fleck grew up and under which everything that happens to him is sad, is tragic. But the reaction to it, his reaction to it, is to choose to act out in a violent way, and the movie absolutely justifies that.
It paints look, what else was he supposed to do kind of track.
Yeah, he's backed into a corner, the society doesn't care about him, this is the only way he's gonna get what he deserves.
Like in the train scene, right? The one, the Walmart murders.
Oh yeah.
I don't know Walmart, Wall Street.
Wall Street.
You're rooting for him because those are the assholes.
They are assholes. When I watch Billions, every time after every episode of Billions, I want to take a shower because it's so gross. They're all so gross, I'm sure there's somewhere a saintly investment banker. But in the movie, it's definitely they're coded as, okay, and this was in the 80s when Wall Street people were taking drugs and everything, Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
So they come in, they harass him, guy's just lost his job. He shoots them, but he doesn't intend to.
Yeah.
So
it
that's
is
like
actually
his start.
self-defense.
Yeah, that is his start of darkness. His start of darkness is a very justifiable kind of place.
When I was a little boy and told people I was going to be a comedian, everyone laughed at me. Well, no one's laughing
By the time
now.
where he is actually just killing, you're still left with the notion that that's just what society made him out to be.
Yeah.
But this excuses real life monsters in a way. I don't disagree that there's a certain amount of overreaction that's happening. I think we have to remember that the reality of the situation is, in 2012, there was a mass shooting in a theatre showing Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
Right? And that guy did speak about the Joker.
One of the reactions before the movie came out was a letter that was co-signed by parents, by like family members of shooting victims of the Aurora shooting, addressed to Warner Brothers.
Yes.
And so Warner Brothers replied to that, and their statement, I thought, was a good statement in that they said, the movie is not condoning violence and movies are supposed to start a conversation. So to me, it was very bizarre that the director Todd Phillips and Joaquin Phoenix, like their comportment during the promotional tour for this has been in the complete other direction.
There's a thing where Joaquin Phoenix walked out of the room.
He panicked. He panicked, he walked out of the room, and it took the journalists an hour to negotiate with the PR people to resume the interview. I can think of ways to answer the questions that have been asked without sounding like they're acting out. Especially on Todd Phillips' part.
Movies are ultimately a form of art, and art is a form of expression. So it is fine that you do something where sometimes you portray very questionable characters in very questionable lights. But when it comes to an adaptation of something that has existed for a long time, there is also the responsibility to their source material. Superheroes were created to inspire. It's no secret that a lot of what made superheroes a big thing was the climate in which they were created during World War II, during the Cold War, and people turned to this kind of escapism for comfort. So just like how superheroes have the power to inspire, to give hope, a lot of the characters also can inspire the other way.
Yeah, that's
so
right. Yeah.
Putting out a character like Joker, who is, in the comic, to not mince words, is a murderer, a rapist. He has committed some of the most heinous crimes in the DC universe.
And that's what he derives joy from.
To take that character and essentially justify his actions.
Yeah, it's like cast him in an aspirational light.
By no fault of the movies, sometimes I think people may take the wrong message from it.
Yeah, and I think, this is a completely different thing than, if you play violent video games, you're going to become a shooter, I think the specificity of this movie and how this movie appeals to the frustration and the anger that a lot of people are justifiably experiencing in this climate, in this economy. One of the big reference points for this movie is Taxi Driver.
Right.
And John Hinckley Jr. watched Taxi Driver and he felt like he wanted to impress Jodie Foster's obsessed with her, so he went and tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan. Okay, so this is the thing that happened. Does it mean that Taxi Driver should not exist? No, it does not. People are very easy to say, these people who commit these crimes already had a predisposition to do so. Yes, of course. But sometimes a little push is all people need, and that's kind of the frightening thing.
It is a little push, and very unpopular opinion, but whether it's unpopular or not, I don't know, but it's going to be a controversial opinion, I guess, is that the very many people who are going to watch Joker will be comic book fans.
For sure, yeah,
right?
yeah.
And it's no secret that comic book fans are usually geeks, and geeks often grow up in a situation where they're not very socially acceptable.
Yeah.
And we're starting to actually see the backlash of this mentality, right? We're seeing it in Star Wars.
For sure.
Right? The inability to accept a female lead, even though she's probably gotten more development than Luke Skywalker did.
The inability to accept a female president of the studio.
Right, yes. Yeah. Even though she's done a greater job than the last president. Right? Yeah, sue me, whatever. We're actually starting to see the reality of these consequences. And I guess to put a label to it, not a label I love, this is the incel culture.
Yeah, and I'm not, we're not saying everyone who watches Joker, who likes Joker, is an incel. Yeah. Definitely not, And I think there have been so many strawman arguments, so many slippery slope arguments that it's very easy to kind of discount the valid concerns that people have. You can like a thing and still be concerned about it. I like this movie. I think it's a good movie, but I'm still concerned about it because there's precedence.
Yes.
And because there are people who are going to leave this movie and say, this movie understands me.
Correct.
Joker understands me. I am Joker.
Yeah, it's the I am Joker that I'm terrified about.
Yeah.
Because again, the fact of the matter is he's going through a lot of things that none of us are actually going through.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to sometimes exaggerate your own experiences to kind of emulate that of the characters that you're witnessing. And that is something that I think I would actually actively be worried about.
Yeah, to scale it up. And I think like we've been seeing this before the movie was released. When no one had seen the movie yet, there were people who were already sending death threats to film critics, to film reviewers who had written negative reviews about the movie, and especially female film reviewers, especially women.
Unfortunately, fantasy and adventure is a very male-dominated audience, and there is this sense of possessiveness that it's an all-boys club. And they don't like
the
girls.
Treehouse,
yes,
right? Yeah,
exactly. They don't like girls in the treehouse.
And I think like it's also very scapegoaty to say critics don't like this movie because this movie is doing pretty well.
Yes.
On Rotten Tomatoes, it won the Golden Lion at Venice, which is an achievement. That's not a thing a comic book movie has done before. And this definitely will be up for major awards. It will be up for Oscars. It will be up for the Golden Globes. This is not to say that this is the first comic book movie which has been given acclaim, which has been given awards consideration.
Right,
but I think you kind of see people hiding behind the facade of seriousness as seriousness equals legitimacy.
And this is actually an eternal Batman versus Superman debate.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And why so many people who basically don't understand the point of Superman thought Man of Steel was a good take on the character because they made him dark.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I think that's because people are forgetting that the darkest characters often don't wear it on the sleeves. With Superman, sure, you know, he's bright and cheery and he's how do you do and all that stuff. But ultimately, he's a character whose reality is that he'll outlive everybody that he loves.
He's a god, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Except he just doesn't see a need to go and sit in a corner and cry.
And sometimes he does, and it's literally called the Fortress of Solitude. It's kind of a sad thing.
Yeah, which is apparently also the coolest zoo.
But it's also like huge statue of his parents who are dead, you know, in the cottage. So all of these characters have a darkness.
Yes, exactly. And not wearing it on their sleeves is what, to me, sometimes makes something more adult, more mature, because it requires inference.
That's right. Yeah.
Right? And that's the thing about, like, say for example, for me, the Marvel universe is ultimately more successfully darker than the DC universe, because the Marvel universe repeatedly handles the themes of superheroes who are fallible.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, almost literally half the movies are because Tony Stark fucked something up.
Exactly, and then the rest of it, he's reckoning with it.
Right.
People are reckoning with it, and people around him are arguing over how to reckon with it.
Right, and one of the greatest things about, like, for example, Endgame was how he goes all the way back to Age of Ultron, and even though he knew that his plan was a mistake, in Endgame he makes it very clear that he's been thinking about it and he thinks he was in the right.
Yeah.
Right? But, you know, before we go into celebrating the superhero franchise...
No, my favorite Joker.
That says a lot. I do not want studios to think we can't make movies about villains.
Yeah.
Right? Because they are very interesting villains. Villains do deserve the spotlight. Characters like, you know, Lex Luthor and Joker arguably have contributed to the heroes for what they are today. But I think there needs to be a kind of caution to how they're portrayed. If you're going to do someone like the Joker or even the Green Goblin, they're monsters.
And I think, like, when we are talking about superhero movies in general and talking about the MCU, you know, Killmonger comes to mind as one of the villains where a lot of people empathize with him. There were a lot of essays and think pieces about how Killmonger did nothing wrong. And basically what happens is Killmonger has a justifiable start point.
Yeah.
His end point is too extreme to defend.
Yeah. And he pays for it.
Yeah.
That's kind of the problem with the Joker. He doesn't pay for it. And on the other end of the spectrum,
he gets what he wants, you know?
Yeah.
Does he face consequences? Yeah. But he also gets what he wants.
Assuming that it wasn't imagination.
It wasn't in his head.
He receives an adulation.
Yeah, because there's one scene in the movie that kind of sums the whole thing up where he's just committed a horrible violent act and it's on TV. Right. And then we zoom out and we see multiple TV screens all showing this one thing. Everyone on TV, everyone on news is talking about Joker.
That's actually the most Batman-esque thing that you see in the movie. But okay, so on the other end of characters that you can adapt, villains that you can adapt, is your Magnetos, your Black Adams, right? Characters who are essentially motivated by noble causes but just have very questionable methods. So if you do want to explore a villain, why not one of these guys? Also, I think a very big thing is that these guys have powers. One bends metal, the other one throws electricity.
There's a fantasy element to it.
There is a kind of a shroud between the audience and the context of the of the movie,
which is what Joker falling into a vat of acid grants you as well.
Right, exactly. Yeah, which is actually something that I think is very interesting because while Joker has been a murderous sociopath since his inception, the difference is that people didn't react to Jack Nicholson the way they did to Heath Ledger. It could have just been Chicago instead of Gotham.
Yeah.
Right? It could have been the Trumps instead of the Waynes. And it would have been the same movie, except for some reason this guy seems to want to dress up as a clown.
Yeah, so the cynical way to look at it is that this is a movie which is emulating all of those 70s, early 80s psychological and crime thrillers, but the branding of Batman, the branding of the Joker iconography is what makes it appealing to the mass market.
So that's our discussion about Joker. I foresee us returning to this topic when they inevitably announce either a sequel or a follow-up. So if you liked our ranting, be sure to like, subscribe, and apparently there are other buttons below this video. Click them all, except the thumbs up. Don't click on that one. But we expect to be celebrating Wonder Woman, so...
Yeah, I'm just gonna be like, through the whole Birds of Prey videos, they did Bud and Lou in live action hyenas, and I won't say anything else.
I'm just gonna be like, hey, it's Ewan McGregor.
Hello there.
The male Brie Larson.